The hiring practices of the Windsor Police Service are compliant with provincial constable selection system, enhanced by additional requirements on a local level. We are hiring the very best this community has to offer. As acting chief, it is my duty to ensure adequate training and supervision is provided to each and every member of the service. In conclusion, I want to assure the members of this community that they have a leadership team committed to delivering their expectations as we move forward in 2012. As an organization, we are committed to changing those aspects of our culture that do not reflect the values and expectations of this community.
The community message is we don't want any more misconduct. We want it fixed up, we want it cleaned up, and we're prepared to do whatever we want.
You mentioned that you're restricted by legislation because of privacy issues. Is there some legislation that needs to change before you can fully implement this stuff?
Yeah, this entire thing needs to change. If you review this Police Services Act, the board members will speak to this as well. Anyone that's been involved in policing in Ontario that's been having to deal with provisions in this legislation, I think will agree that the legislation is outdated and needs to be changed. With regards to implementation, I'll let the acting chief speak to it, but this legislation needs to change. And if, and I've shared this with some of you, but I want to use this opportunity to say it again, because in the private sector, if someone is suspended, they're suspended without pay. And obviously, there's a presumption of innocence until proven guilty, and then if you need to, then you can go back and reinstate pay. The Act says, the legislation says, and mandates suspension with pay. We get calls from the public saying, what are you thinking as a board? And we say, well, it's not us, it's the legislation. The legislation says that after 2 years, your file's expunged. People in the public don't know that. The legislation says the board is independent, and there's a wall, if you will. Supreme Court Canada language, there's a bifurcation between the board and operations, and you can't, the chief has got complete control, and you can't tell the chief what to do and what not to do. Those are only some examples in terms of questions that we've received from the public as a result to these issues. But this legislation needs to change. There's provisions in this legislation that I understand why they're there, and let's not be naive about. We have a definition, we want everybody to define it. Well, the SIU, the arm's length province, walk across the hall, walk into the chamber, and tell your provincial MPPs, you tell the Premier and the government to codify the definition. Seriously, we're having a debate and discussion in the province about a definition. You've got the Ontario Chiefs of Police that don't want to adopt it, right? We're adopting it now, but if such an issue, SIU, walk across the hall, go to Queen's Park, walk into the chamber, tell them to codify it. They can codify the fact that you've got to be suspended with pay, but they won't codify the fact that you should call when and done. And then their own ombudsman will come back and issue a report saying, we've got these problems with SIU. Well, let's simplify the fact, guys. Let's go back and codify the language. Very simple. The ombudsman works for Queen's Park. Independent. SIU, independent. OIPRD, independent. Go codify it. Make it law.
So are you saying then that a lot of these problems are simply because...
No. My response was, are there legislative changes that need to be required? Yes, there are legislative, and I think there are steps that need, if anything, people I think are more aware of the legislation that exists today as a result of these issues. But the acting chief was speaking to constraints, and I'm glad that he spoke to it. There are a lot of constraints in this piece of legislation.
How does one train ethics?
It's good. That's a good question. It was done in some type of a traditional class-based setting, but then it was scenario-based, and it was based on input at roundtable discussions. It was a fantastic training. The guys got a lot out of it, and really appreciate it. We've heard a lot about culture over the last number of weeks. And I can tell you that the Windsor Police Service has a complex culture, as do most police services in Canada. If this community is going to play a key role in our cultural change, we want to know directly from them what it is they expect from us, what it is we're doing right, because I can tell you emphatically that there are many parts of our culture that are working exceptionally well. there is a perception out there, whether real or not, that people are intimidated to make a complaint about the police. I think our 5-year trend was probably around 80 public complaints per year, and probably in the range of 10 to 15 chief's complaints. That has fallen dramatically in the last couple of years. With the officer, they can get letters of apology. There's a whole range of types of recommendations or resolve to the issues.
Community saying that we want change, but I also recognize it's going to be a lot of work. I recognize that the men and women of Windsor Police Services have a significant responsibility to help us get to that point, but I think it's certainly something that the board is very pleased to see the senior leadership team embrace.
We had lost sight, and I believe all policing had lost sight of our foundation, of our core, why we're here to do, and that is to serve the public. I honestly believe that there is no industry held more accountable than policing, and certainly policing in this province. We recognize that, we embrace it, and our job is to help our people, our members at every level of the organization, to understand what those expectations are. Every member of this organization is expected to be a leader. People don't care if you got 20 minutes on the job or 20 years on the job when they call us. They want to see a leader walk up their sidewalk. And we express that to our people, and we help them to understand how important that is, that they accept that role as leaders. But not only that they accept it, but that they realize it.
I fully expect that this is just the beginning. I expect there to be more recommendations as we go forward. And I think that this is continuous as part of the Windsor Police Service culture.
There are no psychological tests done at the moment for new hires.
For new hires, there is.
Yeah. Oh, there is.
There is for new hires.
And now what's new then is the mandatory testing as well as the financial background checks for members entering these high-risk positions. What do you look for? What will you look for? The
propensity for substance abuse, perhaps. The propensity for less than ethical behavior. And how they establish those parameters or those thresholds, I'm not certain. But as an acting chief, that's what I would be interested in.
So how do you describe the morale of your department?
Gino, I think the deputy referred to that earlier, but amazingly, the morale is extremely high. And then the morale is extremely supportive. The rank and file is extremely supportive of the efforts we've been making. First of all, they've been kept in the loop. They've been addressed on 2 occasions now directly from me. So they understand the goal. They understand what it is we're trying to do. And I can tell you, and I know all the members of the leadership team have gotten messages of support, commitments by people all through the organization at every rank to what we're doing. You mentioned incidents at the border. As you know, we take those incidents very seriously. And we had a number of incidents recently outlined in the media where there was outrage why those people are still here. Well, those people, whoever they are, we're subject to the Police Act of the day. There's certain thresholds, but we also have a great history here of holding people accountable.